All right, we are back on our 150th episode where we're talking about various space conspiracies.
Yeah.
Now, in this segment, I kind of want to get a little bit into flat Earth stuff.
Flat Earth stuff.
Because I could not believe that there were still people in this day and age that genuinely believed that the Earth was flat. I thought we had left that behind us thousands of years ago, but apparently we have not, because there are actually people nowadays that believe that the Earth is flat. Now, you said before the break...
You're talking about flat Earth reality.
Yeah.
Some people want to call it flat Earth theory. It's not a theory; it's a reality. But it's a different. It's a different kind of reality than you're used to.
The reality that isn't real. That kind of reality.
Some people want to believe that the Earth is flat because it's biblical in nature. It's religious.
Most of the people want to believe it.
But there are other people that want to believe that the Earth is flat. This is like people like me. Okay, I'm a flat Earth realist. I want to believe the Earth is flat because it's more challenging.
In what sense?
Well, it's easy to prove that the Earth is round, man. Fucking, you got to be a bad motherfucker if you can prove that it's flat. All right.
Well, I have yet to see anyone prove that it's flat, so...
I proved this flat.
You will?
Well, yeah,
now?
I was in an airplane and I proved it was flat because, look, if you're on a sphere, all right, and you're in an airplane flying around a sphere, okay, and you're flying straight, okay, here's the sphere, right? You would fly off of it like that and leave the Earth behind. Okay. You know what I'm talking about? You just fly because you're flying straight.
Okay, but...
So, if you get on an airplane, all right, and you know the little lunch tray that comes down off the back of the
yeah, the cart. Yeah.
The cart. You know what I mean? Well, you know the seat in front of you's got a table on it. Lower that table, okay, and you put a level on that, okay.
Oh, you saw that YouTube video.
Yeah, you put a level on it. He proved it.
He didn't prove it. But
you put a level on that, right? You'll see that plane isn't going down to hug the curvature of the Earth. It's going straight. It's flat. How you like them apples?
I've heard that. That was one YouTube video that was... It was... I don't know how famous it was, but I read about it like on a refutation site that refuted it. And... yeah, they mentioned it. I didn't watch it.
No, you I don't want to. You want to bring up all this gravity and spheres having gravity and mass. That's fine. That's an easy explanation. Right? That's a very. It's just there's a certain challenge to proving that the Earth is actually flat.
Do you think that's why they're in it, as for like a
intellectual
challenge?
Let me be serious. Some people believe that the Earth is flat because they try to make the Earth flat because that's kind of what's being described in Genesis. That it's flat and it has four corners, and those corners stand on pillars of the Earth.
Yeah, they're biblical literalists.
Right, it doesn't say what the pillars are fucking standing on. Okay.
Turtles?
Yeah, it didn't say anything about turtles.
No,
just
I just said that because
pillars. Okay.
You know, stack of turtles.
So that's the reason why they want to say it's flat. Other people want to say that it's flat because it's kind of it's fun to try to come up with crazy ways of proving that the Earth is actually flat.
I would hope that, because like I said, I don't know. I was reading this article it came out in Newsweek it was probably about a year ago. And it was written by Lee McIntyre, who is a philosopher of science, and I've read some of his other stuff as well. And he went to a flat Earth convention that took place in, I believe it was in Denver, Colorado, last year in 2018. And he was talking about, because I think he was kind of hoping, too, that some of these people were just, like, having people on or whatever. But he's like, no, most of these people were serious. It was about 600 people there, so not, like, a huge amount of people or anything. But he said now 99.9% of them were fundamentalist Christians. So it was biblical literalism mainly. He's like, but there were a few notable exceptions. Most of the people who actually believe it because they're biblical literalists.
Yeah.
But I think there's some other people that believe it too. And maybe some people believe it just for, like you said, like as an intellectual exercise
yeah.
in the sense that they don't really believe that it's true.
They just try to prove that it's true.
But they just find it entertaining to prove that it's true.
Right.
Just
like,
because...
have you seen their models of that explain day and night and seasons? I mean... That the Earth is actually flat. The sun is moving in an ellipse around over the top of it.
Yeah, I've seen
with the moon following it.
This is what, because like I said, I didn't know a lot about this because, like I said, I'd heard the thing that like flat Earth belief was on the rise. It's not like it's endemic or anything like that. It's like, oh, we got like 200 more people than last year. So it's not like a huge amount of people. It's still a tiny percentage. But I had still been hearing about how flat Earth shit was kind of like increasing. So I was like kind of curious. It's like, are these people serious? Come on now. So I kind of like looked into a little bit. So I wanted to see like what some of their models were. And I was like, what do they actually believe? Like, what do they believe the shit looks like?
You got to cut some backflips to get that model to work. You got to be a genius.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, so essentially, and there's differences in what some of them believe. And like I said, a lot of them get it from biblical literalism or from literalism in the Quran, because there's some Islamic flat earthers as well. But basically, their model is that, yeah, the Earth is like a flat sphere, and that the, you know, it has like the little Arctic Circle is in the middle, and then like all the continents are on the outside, and then on the rim is a wall, 150-foot wall of impenetrable ice, which keeps you from going off the edge.
Yeah. And
what's past the edge? They don't say.
The Islamic
What's
model,
underneath? They don't say. Rocks.
The Islamic model of flat Earth is that the sun, that the Earth is flat and the sun sets into a muddy hole like a well, where black people take care of it like the pit crew to the sun, and then it comes back up. If you don't believe me,
that's awesome.
If you don't believe me. If you don't believe me,
the sun's pit crew.
Yeah,
that's adorable.
Black people are the sun's pit crew. That's some shit, huh? And if you don't believe me,
I want some of the shit they're smoking.
If you don't believe me, on YouTube, there's an Iraqi guy. The name of the channel is called the Masked Arab, and he does videos on the Quran, and he talks about this surah, and he talks about it both in English and in Arabic because he's bilingual. And he will explain to you exactly what flat Earth in the Quran is. And with Africans as the pit crew to the sun. And also...
Got to put new spark plugs in that motherfucker every now and then, every 3,000 miles.
There's also something about... what's his name? Not David. Not Moses. Oh... The Greek guy who conquered the earth, Alexander.
Yeah.
Yeah, evidently Alexander had found out where it rose, which I guess was India. You have to revisit.
Your guess is as good as mine.
You have to revisit those surahs directly. Go see the Masked Arab on YouTube. He'll explain it.
But yeah, so I was seeing this one. I saw this one.
Where does the sun set? That's the name of the video.
Yeah, see, because when I was looking into like the kind of American and British flat earthers, because it does seem to be a mostly American and British phenomenon. You know, I wanted to see like their little models. It's like, well, where do they think that the sun goes? Where do the stars go? Blah, blah, blah. So like I said, they think that there's like flat and it's like ice around all the outside perimeter that you can't get through. So, you know, there's no... And also, some of them also posit that people from NASA are guarding the ice wall to keep people from climbing over it and figuring out what's on the other side. So, okay, I don't know how that works. But what they have going on, they also think that the sun and the moon are like much smaller than they are in reality, maybe like 32 miles across, something like that, and that they're not that far away, and that they're just kind of like above us a little bit, and they're just kind of like scooting around the little fucking circular whatever.
They're actually installed into the fundament.
Yeah,
the fundament of the sky.
fundament. That always makes me think of a bubble.
That's the ceiling of the sky.
I know.
The stars and the moon and the sun.
Yeah, some of them also posit like a dome over the whole thing. So we're like living inside like one of those like little Christmas shaker balls that have like the snow.
Well, this is all, of course, the ancient.
We're like living inside of one of those.
This is all, of course, the ancient Egyptian model. With the duat, which is and the underworld, and the duat, which is the horizon. That was very mystical to the ancient Egyptians, and that the stars and the sun and the moon were all set in the foundation of the sky, and there was a big procession that went through. So really,
it's like throwing a pencil up
the Abrahamic religions are all set in the Egyptian universal model.
Yeah,
that's
well, the ancient Greeks figured this shit. They figured out the world was round in like 240 BC, something like that. Eratosthenes figured that shit out.
Yeah, but that was just city folks. They didn't care. They're just city folks.
Also, I was reading something today. It's like, I know that it's very, I don't know if this is as widespread a myth as it used to be, but that like in the days, when Columbus was sailing around exploring and shit like that everybody thought the world was flat. It's like most people did not think the world was flat.
No, they thought it was round.
In 1492. They knew it was round back then.
Yeah.
They said that the only problem with the Columbus thing was that they knew the world was round, but they didn't realize that it was as big as it was. And also, they didn't know the Americas were there. They said that was the issue. It wasn't that they thought it was flat.
And people knew about or thought about aliens for a long, long time.
Oh, yeah.
That goes way back.
Well, shit. Who was the...
They burned one guy at the stake because
that's what I was just thinking
aliens.
He was not only talking about aliens, but he was talking about... he was talking about, like, other planets with alien
civilizations.
Yeah.
That was 1500s, 1400s.
Yeah, something like that. He was like a monk or something like that. I have a book about that guy.
They killed his ass because he wouldn't renounce it.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the only one that believed that.
Yeah, it wasn't... It's not as modern a concept as you think.
And all this bullshit about, they're protecting us from the UFOs because humankind can't handle it. That's bullshit, too, because in the 1800s, the average person believed that there were Martians on Mars.
Yeah.
Lowell and Hubble and all those guys.
And I feel like they were kind of into the idea.
All believed that there was a civilization on Mars, and because they kept seeing canals, which is an optical illusion, but they kept seeing canals on Mars. So the whole H.G. Wells things and Martians coming, they knew that whole...
Well, not only an optical illusion, but also a mistranslation of that word.
Yeah, canali.
That means channels.
Channel.
Not canals.
Yeah, channel. He meant ravines.
Yeah.
But they did kind of seem to be moving, and they thought it was an irrigation system for a dying Earth. And if they're dying, then they might come here. Thus, War of the Worlds and H.G. Wells.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what 1890s,
something like that.
Something like that. But had you gone to somebody in the 1880s and talked about extraterrestrials, they go, "Oh, the Martians."
Yeah, it wouldn't have been weird at all.
Yeah,
that wasn't a weird. And like I said, even go back to the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
I don't think it was that weird. Maybe it was a weirder concept than it was like in the Victorian era, but it wasn't unheard of.
You're right.
And like I said, the ancient Greeks knew the world was a sphere.
Yeah.
Or an oblate spheroid, if you want to be like all pedantic about it. But, they knew the world was round because it's obvious. Like once you start looking at it, it's like obvious that it is. It's obvious that it's not flat. But, so one thing that I saw,
maps don't work if it's flat.
Well, a lot of things don't work if it's flat.
Right.
So this interesting thing that I saw, and I saw this one video by this one guy, and I think he's called Greater Sapien. He has a channel on YouTube, and he kind of showed like a little animation that I think he got from like a flat Earth website that showed like how the little sun like moved around the thing. And he's like, okay, now, can we all agree that, he's like, whether you're a flat earther or a round earther or whatever you want to call it, he's like that the sun moves about 15 degrees an hour. Like, not exactly, but roughly. And he's like, and it moves 15 degrees per hour everywhere on Earth. That only works if the planet is a sphere. Because if the world was flat, which he showed very elegantly with this model, he's like, check it out. Like, if the sun is just going around this little flat thing, he's like, if you were, say, like right here in this little city when this little dude was going like that, he's like, then it wouldn't be 15 degrees because
It's
it would be
speeding up.
shorter. Yeah, it would be like a... But yeah, so...
Hold your hand. It speeds up and it goes into... it does like this with the moon behind it. It's
doing all kind of great.
Yeah. It's just lighting up a square object.
It just seems like the mental gymnastics that you would have to go to. Yeah. And again, this is another thing like the Apollo moon landing hoax. It seems like this is something that you come to the idea first and then you try to come up with justifications for it later.
Which is, the spherical Earth is for simpletons. The flat Earth reality is for geniuses. It takes an advanced mind to understand flat Earth reality.
Okay.
Of how the sun can speed up and slow down. How the moon can orbit inside this over a flat surface, bringing light to all four corners of the square.
4 corners of the square.
Yeah.
I have seen some like kind of ancient belief system where the Earth was square.
Yeah.
Or like kind of like
well,
a
they
cube
say it has
or like
4 corners and it stands on
Okay,
pillars.
so I'm going to go with that. The Earth is a square. I'm a square earther.
It's a square. Yeah. It's not just flat, it's square. Like a checkerboard. With continents on it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Why not?
With a moon and a sun just racing around like fucking
okay,
crazy.
so has anybody done the Earth is shaped like a donut? Can I be the first to do that? Donut Earth?
That would imply a dimension that doesn't exist.
No, I'm gonna come up with all this kind. Okay. I'm gonna have a whole elaborate thing. I'm gonna have my own YouTube channel. I'm gonna do all this. I'm gonna troll all you.
Because you have to understand, you got to incorporate the fundament into all this, and how the dome of the fundament and the foundation, how it comes.
The middle
down.
of the donut is the fundament because that's like the fundamental, like that's like the butthole of the Earth.
But then you have to understand that you can fall off the edge of the Earth, and as you fall, you would see the pillars.
No, because the sprinkles and the frosting keep you from falling off the edges, just like the ice on the flat Earth one, clearly.
The waters of the Earth mingle with the waters of the sky. That's why it falls. It falls as rain. It circulates.
Yeah. Okay.
It falls off the edge, and then it comes back to the Earth in the form of rain. It becomes the waters of the sky and the Earth. That's why
it's recycling the water, just like a malt fountain.
That's why the sky's blue.
Oh,
if you were to look at the ocean out, you got blue, and then it goes to the very edge, and then it hits the end, and it goes up inside the fundament, and then it falls.
Stop saying that word. It's like every time you say fundament, it makes me think of a butthole.
What is that?
So you just kind of keep making me think of a butthole. I don't know.
It's what it says in Genesis.
I know.
Fundament.
He's putting the fun back in fundament.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing about the flat earther, and like I said, I didn't think that any of these people were serious, but apparently some of them are. Because if the Earth was flat, not only would the whole 15 degrees with the sun moving 15 degrees everywhere in the world, which it obviously does if you stand out there and fucking watch it, not only would that not work, but a bunch of other shit wouldn't work either. Like map makers that wouldn't work. It's like people like the fucking plane. Like, look, I've been in a plane. You only have to go up to about 35,000 feet. You can see the curvature of the Earth from an airplane.
It's an optical illusion. It's the pressure. It's the pressure on the atmosphere.
That's probably what they say. That's what they say. Actually, they do say it's refraction or something like that.
Bending the light waves. Yeah.
They come up with like some kind of...
I'm telling you, it's hard to be a flat earther. It's very hard.
Yeah. Are you're persecuted?
It takes it's easy to understand a sphere. It's very hard to understand something that's flat.
Okay, but here's the thing though. If the world really was flat, what would be the point of making everyone think it was a sphere? Like, what would be the point of the conspiracy?
It's deception.
For what
It's to
purpose?
test your faith. It's to test your faith.
Is that what
like dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were placed in the earth by Satan to test your belief.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that one. Creationists pull
that
one out
in
there.
my experience, people that believe in these kind of things like to believe these kind of things because it's making you wrong.
Yeah.
It makes you wrong. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's just
Well,
a way of
wait,
sustaining.
It makes the person saying it wrong, or it makes people arguing against them
No,
wrong?
a flat earther makes the round earther wrong.
They just want to make other people wrong.
Yeah, they're making other people wrong.
But do they know
the
that
Bible's
they're wrong?
right? Yeah, they know they're wrong.
I kind of feel like they do.
Yeah,
like
they know
deep
they're wrong.
down.
Yeah, they're not gonna. It's like a warfare. They're not gonna give that victory out. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know.
In terms of, because you know, I was a Christian. I wasn't a fundamentalist Christian, but I was raised as a Christian, and I understand the mindset. They don't want a non-believer to be right. They want their beliefs to be right. Okay.
Also, I think they get off on being persecuted, or they get off on being perceiving that they're being persecuted, even if they have to like make up that they're being persecuted.
Well, I think everybody kind of does that to a certain extent. I mean, you know, you have a lot of kids or a lot of college kids say that they're persecuted, and they're not. They're obviously privileged. They're in college, okay. They don't know because they're young. They don't know anything. Well, religious people, I think. Well, it depends on the religion. Some religions are persecuted. Some of them are.
Yeah, like I said.
I mean,
but
think about it. I mean, out in Mississippi, you know, some of these weird Mennonite cults and stuff. Yeah, they're kind of persecuted because they're weird.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it persecuted. I mean, when I say persecuted, I mean you're like thrown in jail and like tortured and stuff.
No,
persecuted doesn't mean people make fun of you. It's like people make fun of you for all kinds of a variety of reasons. That doesn't mean that you're persecuted.
Just being made fun of and being not believed in they perceive that as.
That's what I mean. To me, that is not strong enough.
Because
to be
they're trying to come give you their religion, and you go, man, I don't believe in that crazy shit. And all of a sudden, their feelings are hurt, and they're like, you persecuted me.
Yeah, see, that's
you're
not
rejecting what I believe. You're rejecting the truth. That's how they're gonna put it.
Which, like I said, if it was me, like I'm not a dumbass, and like I don't go around trying to like convince people of like crazy religious beliefs. But even if I did, like I would go to somebody's like I would never do this. This is an alternate reality version of me. I would go to somebody's house and be like, hey, can I tell you the word about the flying spaghetti monster or whatever? And they would say, no, fuck off, weirdo. And then I'd be like, oh, well, more salvation for other people. It's like, I wouldn't worry about it. Why are they worried about it?
What? You just don't understand religion and the way it is. You know what I mean? I guess it's like an evolutionary process.
I do, but I don't understand that mindset.
You got gay people in religion going around trying to de-gayify other gays, using like anti-gay therapy.
Yeah, like that I do not get.
And then a few years later, they even the ones doing the therapy drop out and just says, "No,
well, yeah, because they're like, look, I can't do this anymore."
Right. We saw that movie on it where you had, you know, gay school, anti-gay church. What was it called?
Yeah, I can't remember the name.
What was the name of it?
It was a good movie though.
It's a good movie about a gay
Nicole
kid.
Kidman was in it, right?
Yeah.
It was based on a true story.
About a gay kid who was in a religious family, and they sent him to gay camp.
They did pray the gay away camp.
To pray the gay away. And all the counselors there praying the gay away were all gay.
Yeah, and they're like, look, we did it.
Yeah, we're not gay anymore.
But then like years later, they were like, fuck this, we can't.
And then at the end of the movie, you find out what happened to all those people, and all those counselors were gay. They're still gay.
They just couldn't do it anymore because their whole foundation, like, that was just an entire lie. They couldn't live a lie anymore.
Yeah, and you know, I go on YouTube and hear people talking, you know, they're from California or New York, you know, or places that in city areas, you know, they didn't have any kind of religious upbringing or any religious influence, you know, from their family because of where they lived, and that boggles their mind. You know what I mean? That a gay person could be religious. There's a lot of gay people that are religious. It doesn't
boggle my mind. It's just, I don't know. Like, it's just something that I wouldn't do because it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, if it makes sense to other people, that's, you know, whatever. That's on them.
Religion is kind of a mind. It's kind of a mind trick in the way that a lot of politics is a mind trick. Because I see. Even the greats always said that this is a spectrum. It's like a continuum. Starts with superstitions, religions, philosophies, and then politics. In that order. It's all about the same thing. They're belief systems. Things that you think are true. Things that you want to be true for one reason or another. So you always gotta question yourself, you know, what's true? Yeah. It's only true if you can demonstrate it over and over again in nature, I guess, you know.
Well, yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from with that.
There's a lot of politics that isn't true.
That's why I'm kind of like... That's why I'm kind of like fascinated by these flat earth people, because I'm like, if people genuinely believe... And like I said, these people are kind of like analogous to like creationists who, like I said, probably piss me off more than anything because they're biblical literalists.
It's the same thing as creationism.
It's pretty much the same thing. Yeah. It's like they read it in the book, so it's like it has to be true. So any kind of mental contortion they go to make it true is necessary. So they don't think about it as a mental contortion, I guess, because...
It's a part of fundamentalism.
Yeah.
Because if you can come out and say, well, look, this part isn't true. The Bible says the earth is flat, and that's not true. Well, if that's not true, then everything else can be untrue also.
The weird thing about it is,
so they don't want those chips to fall. They're trying to hold them all up there as if it's a perfect belief that there's no, it's unassailable. But the thing is that the Bible, both New Testament and Old Testament, was never like that. They were always, it was always a collection of works. It had always been harmonized in together. It was never really supposed to be taken that literally. This is not a legal system. That's why the Muslims have the Hadith. You know, the Hadith is the legal system part. You know what I mean? Because that's not the story part. The story part is the fucking Quran. Well, the Christians don't have a Hadith, so they try to make the New Testament a Hadith. In other words, a legal system. And you can't do that. It's just, they're just stories.
Well, you know, and the thing too is that the few verses that a lot of fundamentalist Christians point to as being evidence of flat earth don't come out and say distinctly that the earth is flat. It's an implication that you could read into it if you were so inclined. But the Bible verses don't say, hey, flat earth. It doesn't say that.
It doesn't say the earth isn't flat because you're automatically supposed to be reading it from the perspective that you already know that the earth is flat. Okay?
I'm just saying what they...
The four winds, the four corners of the earth, the pillars
Yeah, but the thing about that is that
Jesus comes down from heaven and the entire world sees him. That means that the earth is flat.
But the whole four corners thing, they said the same four corners thing using the same words to talk about someone's head. So unless they're talking about someone's head being square, they're not implying that the world is square or flat in that verse.
It is, because it says it has a fundament, which is a dome. A dome that's over a flat earth that has stars, suns, a sun, and the moon is embedded in it. So there's a solid ceiling.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so it's there. And it moves. The ceiling moves. That's the Egyptian model. What they're saying isn't new. That's what people even before the Christian era believed.
Well, yeah,
even before the Jewish era.
But like I said, there's really no excuse because the fucking ancient Greeks knew that the fucking earth was spherical. So you'd think that they would have...
Yeah, but that was just one place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you didn't have mass media back then, you know, so people were skeptical of what foreigners believed in, and Greeks were just foreigners. If you understand what I'm talking about.
Damn foreigners.
Fucking foreigners, you know what I mean? And they did weird shit, you know, with little boys and stuff. So why would you believe them? That's so that's... You have to look at it from the point of view of
Here's the thing, though, about... Okay, now...
Back in those days, there were a lot of crazy beliefs. There was no way of
today there's a lot of crazy beliefs.
But in those days, there was no way of really knowing which ones were correct.
Yeah.
And you could try to science the shit out of somebody who was, you know... who was a Christian in the year 400, and that might not work.
But the thing about it is
even today, there are people where science won't work on them.
Well, like I said, I'm not even like shitting on people like 2,000 years ago because they didn't know any better. Yeah. People nowadays should know better and yet do not. That's kind of like what's sadder.
Well, you're assuming that everyone is of the same intelligence, and science shows over and over again that no, that IQ is a reality, and that there is a spectrum inside IQ.
Well, obviously,
some people can't grasp certain concepts;
right,
they're just not there. I mean, you know, and then there's people at the other end of the spectrums that are like Einstein's, and you know, who can grasp things that you and I can barely imagine.
Although he got some shit wrong too.
Yeah. But there are some...
Everyone does. Everyone makes mistakes.
There are some super geniuses out there at the certain end, at the other end of the spectrum that can imagine, that make us look like chimpanzees with the shit that they can do in their head. But I've met those guys when I was, down in Boston in the MIT area. They're all idiot savants. You don't want to hang around with them.
Well, like I said, there's some amount of trade-off. It's almost kind of like, well,
as soon as they get that smart, you don't want to. They're
the
like
human
retarded.
brain is a finite organ.
Yeah.
So if like a disproportionate amount of it is like kind of put aside for one particular thing, then there's going to be less of it for other things. That's
typically
all.
Social skills.
Like I said, or maybe it's not so much that they didn't get that like genetically, but they thought it wasn't important, so they didn't really develop it. Yeah, that could be also.
You just can't stand to be around them.
Yeah,
you seen Revenge of the Nerds? Yeah, like that.
Yeah,
like, man,
but then the thing about it too is that I've known people even in my own family that were like, super geniuses and stuff like that were completely normal individuals, and you would never know. Yeah. So you know what I mean? It's kind of a trade-off, and like I said, I'm not saying that that's not a cliche for a reason, but you can't like assume that everyone. That's
there were
like
other
that.
guys, especially back in the 40s and the 50s, that didn't have any computers, but they could do math in their head. They did all this shit on a slide roll, and they smoked cigarettes, chased women, and fucking knocked back shots.
Well, yeah,
of
look at
scotch all the time.
Look at Richard fucking Feynman.
Yeah,
look that bitch up.
And then they were sending motherfuckers to the moon and making atomic bombs. Yeah. You know what I mean? So they were smart, but they were also
Richard Feynman was
not a man to be trifled with.
Is kind of like the illustration of what you're talking about there. Who was actually like kind of a genius level physicist, but also
very competent.
Poonhound.
Yeah, and the closest you'd have to that
and very
today,
popular with women.
Closest you'd have that today would be Neil deGrasse.
I was going to say, look at Carl Sagan. Look at Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Carl Sagan was the shadow Poonhound. That dude right there, the women loved him. My aunt, we used to work with him.
He's super foxy.
Yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson also super foxy. Yeah. I love Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
His Twitter feed is
Tyson carries himself as a man. That's a guy you could actually have a drink with.
Well, he used to be a wrestler. Yeah. So he wasn't like, he didn't like neglect.
He didn't realize other aspects of life.
Other aspects, yeah. He's a very well-rounded individual, and he's a good communicator. So,
Yeah.
He just kind of lucked into that whole thing. But
I could listen to that dude for hours.
I could too.
Yeah, I could listen to that dude.
I think I've read pretty much every book he's ever written. But even that one about Pluto. I love that he got so much hate mail about Pluto, like when he demoted it. Well, it wasn't him that did it, but I mean, he kind of advocated, we should demote Pluto because if Pluto's a planet, then we have to like all these other like mini like dwarf planets. We have to make them planets too. So let's not do that.
Tyson is today's version of Sagan.
Yeah. Well, that's why he got the Cosmos show. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Carl was the shit too. I can sit back and listen to Carl talk all the time.
Oh yeah, me too.
It's just that a lot of his information is now out of date now because they've discovered so much more. But a lot of stuff he said on Cosmo turned out to be that it was verified. A lot of the stuff that they said on the old Cosmo.
Well, yeah, I think so. It's not so much that it was verified, but I think they knew a lot of stuff in the scientific community that took a long time to like filter out to the public.
Well, a lot of it had to do with exoplanets, though. They couldn't prove that all those exoplanets
but
were out
they
there,
were
but they
sure
pretty much knew.
They
pretty much knew that all those damn stars had planets. And
like I said, I think that happens a lot. I think that scientists are like way ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
In making predictions and things like that. But sometimes they're waiting. They're like, well, we don't want to like release this until we have proof of it, until we know. So sometimes it'll be years and years, and then they'll be like, oh, okay, finally. It was just kind of like, when they discover certain particles or whatever, it's like theoretically they knew that particle existed, but they said, let's wait until we actually find repeatable evidence of its existence before we go out and tell everybody that it's there.
Nowadays, you hear a bunch.
They're kind of cautious about that.
Nowadays, I go on here and I hear all these young people, and they're pessimistic as shit about the Earth. You know what I mean? The environment. And I'm not like that, man. I'm an optimist. There are lots of planets like this. They're not that unique. We will be traveling to other stars. We're going to figure it out. Mankind is not dumb.
I mean, I hope we do.
We're going to figure that shit out.
I'm a realist, but I'm not an optimist or a pessimist about it. I just kind of like, I said, you know what? I'm just going to see what happens. I'm just going to roll with it.
I wouldn't surprise me that in a couple hundred years from now that we'll be a multi-planet species. If not, probably maybe multi-star systems. Because there might be a little trick that we haven't really picked up yet to where you can like bend space. So
that's what I mean. There's no telling.
we're gonna stumble onto some shit, and it's gonna be like, oh, is that all it is? You know?
Yeah, that's why.
The next thing you know, you got like warp drive from.
That's
Star
why
Trek.
I've always said it's like I find it, and I might have mentioned this before, but I find it pointless to like speculate about future, what's going to happen in the future, because there are too many contingencies.
Yeah.
You don't know, like, if somebody makes some like amazing discovery tomorrow that people are like, oh crap, why didn't we think of that before? Like you said, like bending spacers, which is for an example. It's like, so, you know, who could have foreseen, for example, the impact of the internet? Nobody foresaw that.
No.
It's like, so no one could have predicted.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's kind of pointless to predict that it's going to go this way or that way, because no one knows.
I hear these 18 and 20-year-olds and 25-year-olds stressing the fuck out over shit like global warming and stuff. It's too fucking early to worry about that. You don't know what the fuck is going on. All you gotta do is go back and look at what they were worried about 100 years ago. They were worried about fucking stupid shit. Back in the 80s, they were worried about acid rain. There was really nothing to that. Okay? Shit will work out. I'm not worried about it.
It's like, that's kind of what I always like. Like, I'm not saying that bad shit doesn't happen sometimes, because it does, but it's like...
It'll work out.
If you have done everything you can do to, like, prevent a certain thing from happening, then that's all you can do. And it's like, things rarely turn out as badly...
As they think it's going to.
As things, you know, thankfully. Not always. Like, sometimes it turns out worse than you thought. But usually, I think it doesn't turn out quite as bad. Now, I think that sometimes that... Well, one... I think there is a vested interest in making things sound worse than they are.
Money's involved.
You know, just because they like people being scared and stressed out and stuff. But also, I think there's kind of an aspect of, you know, let's err on the side of caution. Like, maybe this isn't going to be quite so bad, but maybe we'll just, like, say it's going to be bad just so we can get people on board with doing this. And that's fine, but it's like, I don't think that things turn out usually quite as bad as we think.
The problem I've been having recently, you know, I build engines and I understand internal combustion and I understand shit like jet engines and things that actually work. You have these people stressing out about fossil fuels and internal combustion, all right, as if that's going to fucking kill everybody. There's got to be a certain time scale involved. And then if you replace internal combustion, which eventually that will happen.
Well, that's already happening.
Yeah, eventually that'll happen. It's just that every form of engine has some kind of an output. Everything has some kind of a waste. So it's not so easy. Like, for instance...
Well, you're just trying to minimize it.
You're trying to minimize it.
That's just the best case scenario.
What I'm getting at is this. You don't really have to eliminate internal combustion. What you have to do is you have to make it very efficient. And we're doing that. It's a lot more efficient now than it used to be.
It's way better than it was. Even in the 70s.
Right. A lot of it just had to do with laws. They would force car manufacturers to make cars a certain weight because they didn't want these imports to come in that were ultra light, things that were kind of like four-wheeled motorcycles. They didn't want those on the road because corporations were involved. If you make a car extremely light, you can make it very efficient. You don't need to burn much energy to get it to move. So
because the heavier it is, the more energy you have to expend to get it to go. Sure.
Yeah, so they worry about shit that there's other solutions for. Another thing is, you know, you have electricity, but let's say you have to have badass batteries for this. Those batteries produce waste product too. There's a bunch of other factors. You can't demonize one form of energy, you know, over another. You just got to pick the best shit you got and make it very efficient. And in my lifetime, I saw cars get way fucking more efficient. Much, much better. Should have seen the way they were in the 70s, the 60s.
Yeah, we were there.
Fuck the 50s. The huge V8 engines that
Those
didn't
things
only
were
make
gigantic.
Yeah, huge V8 engines that
yachts,
burned all kinds of fuel. They didn't even make 130 horsepower. Yeah. You know what I mean? Remember those fucking things?
And the thing about it is that, and the thing about it too is that we were talking about this the other day. It's like people talk about the good old days and shit, and I know I kind of harp on this a lot, but good old days, it's like we were alive in the 60s and 70s, and the cars were enormous, got horrible gas mileage. A lot of them didn't even have seat belts, for Christ's sake. You didn't have to put seat belts in them until sometime in the 70s, I think. I'd have to check. But it's like, you know, much less airbags or like all the other safety shit we have nowadays. Shit nowadays is so much better, so much safer, so much lighter, so much more efficient. It's like, It's just way better nowadays.
Yeah.
It's way better.
The ultimate in power is going to be fucking nuclear. Nuclear power. Making good electric. Okay? Electric motorcycles, electric cars. But to get that done, you have to have very quick charging batteries. And you can say, oh, well, that's terrible. There's some people who say, nuclear, that's dangerous. What do you do with all that fucking waste? Blast that shit off into outer space. Outer space is filled with fucking radioactive material. Just blast it off in outer space. We got all these rockets. These SpaceX rockets. If you wanted to, you could take all that dangerous fucking waste and just blast it off into deep space. It wouldn't be any problem. Because
the aliens deal with that shit.
Well, you don't have to, because space is highly radioactive and very fucking deadly to begin with. And there's neutron stars out there and all kinds of fucking weird ass material. So blasting off some old nuclear waste out there, it wouldn't even be noticed in space. That's just like, it'd be average shit.
Yeah, probably. Like I said, even if there were aliens, they'd be like, oh, more
oh, just that? That's like nothing to them. So people
Man.
worry too much. People worry too much. Humans are smart. They're much smarter than people give them credit for.
Well, some humans are smart.
These corporations are making money, and they're making money off of what they can make money off of now. And in the future, new shit comes down the pipeline. Just look at the stupid shit they were doing 100 years or 50 years ago from now.
I try to, sometimes I get pessimistic about stuff. You gotta put it in perspective what they used to do. But then when you think about, that's kind of how I keep myself from going mental. Because, I have anxiety and shit like that, like everyone else. But I'm just, I think, even 50 years ago, 100 years ago, look at all the stupid shit people believed. Look at all the stupid shit people did. It's like, we don't do that shit anymore, and that's good.
90 years ago...
So, even though sometimes it feels like, 2 steps ahead, 1 step back, but at least you're still going ahead.
90 years ago, not even 90 years ago, maybe 80 years ago, they were selling energy drinks, and the active ingredient was, what was it? Iridium?
Yeah.
Iridium.
Something like that.
I think it's what.
I don't know what
but make your damn jaw fall off. It's radioactive fucking isotopes.
That's what I mean. People back then did some
make
retarded
your jaw
shit.
Fucking
like
fall.
I said, what was I saying the other day? I saw some short on Riff Tracks or whatever, where it's like, let's dry clean our clothes in gasoline and try not to blow ourselves up. Try not to blow yourself up, housewife.
Yeah.
What the
Although
fuck?
I've touched on it before, the gasoline of those days was a lot different.
It's different, sure.
It's a lot different.
But it would still blow you up because obviously they were making
fire.
safety movies about it.
Yeah.
Like, tell your mom not to blow herself up while she's dry cleaning the clothes.
My old buddy Jimmy, talking about deep frying turkeys in motor oil. But that was old school motor oil from like the fucking 20s. How delicious it was and shit. I'd be laughing.
You know what? It's like, I say like that's weird and stuff, but like the more I think about it, I'm like, you know what though? I'd probably eat it.
Jimmy said that the oil wouldn't penetrate the batter.
Well, yeah.
It was too thick.
I can see that.
And it would just kind of like flash fry.
Well, it would just be like oil. It's like it wouldn't
flash
be
fry a fucking chicken. And he just said it was the best way to ever fry chicken was an old-fashioned motor oil from like the 20s.
Motor oil.
Yeah. Not used motor oil, new motor oil.
I was it's
not something that came out of an engine.
I don't know why this reminded me of that, but it was just I guess because I was just thinking about like old-timey stuff that people would never do nowadays.
Yeah.
But back in the old days, I was reading a book about the woman that was a subject of John Singer Sargent's painting, Madame X, very famous painting. And her name was Amelie something. I can't remember what her last name was, but I was reading like a biography of her. And she was like this socialite and stuff, and she was like this, very famous society woman in all the like papers and everything. One of her main features that everyone commented on was her beautiful porcelain skin. And the rumor was that she got that porcelain skin by putting just like arsenic or lead or like other based, that type of chemical shit like on your face or even eating it. Some of them would eat like little parts of arsenic like to make you thinner and like make you paler because that was supposed to make you look more aristocratic. So people were not averse to eating or putting like all kinds of dangerous chemicals like on their face or ingesting them or whatever just because they thought it would make them look better. So it's like people do that nowadays, but I feel like not to the extent as they did back then. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's just like, that kind of reminded me of that, like how people would just like slap fucking, they would just like eat arsenic or put lead on their face or whatever.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, I want to be beautiful and pale and all this other kind of shit.
Getting back to energy, though, I'm going to double back on what I said. The future is electric. You know, and I'm a motorhead. I like internal combustion. Motorcycles, I build motorcycles, cars, but really when you're talking about pound for pound, dollar for dollar, electric motors are fucking powerful and they're strong and they're cheap and they're simple. You know? You can put an electric motor in each wheel of your motorcycle. The weak point right now is the damn battery. They take too long to charge. They can hold a charge, they take too long to charge. That's the weak point. If we get a good batteries, you won't have to worry about fossil fuels. If you're worried about it, I'm not really worried about it, but if we can get those batteries right, you can have some electric vehicles that would blow your fucking mind.
Well, I feel like it's already going in that direction.
It's just that it's got to be a situation where you plug that vehicle in and you can get charged within 10, 15 minutes.
Well, yeah, because no one
That's
wants
the
to ride
problem.
around.
You don't want to sit there for hours waiting for this thing
But
to
like
charge.
I said, I feel like that's
pretty
feasible.
Got to be pretty close.
Sure.
And, you know, electric stuff is better than internal combustion once you get that damn battery right.
Yeah.
And that's got to be common.
Well, yeah, like I said, I feel like they're already making huge strides in that direction, which I think is like a really positive outcome.
Even though I love internal combustion motorcycles, you know, I love my Buells and Harleys and things like that, things that make noise and vibrate and have it's that old school shit. I mean, those will always be there because there are still vehicles over 100 years old as classics. You know, Jay Leno's got a shit ton of them. So
yeah, you can still drive those
they'll
around.
still be around.
Yeah.
It's just that really the way to go is electric. It's so much easier to fix. You know, you don't need transmissions.
Easier to fix, more efficient.
Yeah,
just like so much other things.
That's really the way to go. And then you got to think about the power plant that makes the electricity that charges your battery. You want that to be nuclear, either fission or fusion. Ideally fusion, but I think fusion's a ways away. I mean, I just don't know about it. They've been working on that for so long.
Yeah,
but you can get safe fission. You know, the power plants that have had problems in the past, like Chernobyl and everything, that was human error and they were old models. You can make really good fission reactors, you know, today. You know, if and then that would solve the problem. Yeah. That's green. That's very green. You just boil in water.
And like I said, I feel like as time goes on, even though, like I said, in the short term, it does seem like, you know, things seem to go backwards and stuff like that. But I feel like in the long term, things are kind of like moving ahead. We're kind of building on, you know, knowledge from before. And it's like, we know what mistakes we've made and we know how to like correct for them. So I feel like it will be better. I just, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not pessimistic about the future generally. I'm kind of like, I'm going to wait and see what happens kind of person.
Since the advent of humanity, technology's always moved forward.
Yeah, like I said, sometimes in fits and starts, sometimes it went backwards for a little while and then...
Not for long.
Usually.
Even the fall of the Roman Empire, the technology kept moving forward, basically. Even through the Middle Ages, it still kind of moved forward. There were a few things that were forgotten. But, you know, a lot of it had to do with medicine and philosophy, but steam power was forgotten.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really needed much either in the Middle Ages. But you know, we'll continue to progress.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I feel like...
Technology.
In general, I feel like we're going in the right direction. Yeah. I don't... You know what I mean? I feel like we've gone too far at this point to kind of regress to, like, Dark Ages kind of... era. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Well, what was funny about the Dark Ages wasn't a technological thing. It was more a societal thing.
It was.
So and
it wasn't completely...
It wasn't completely dark.
Dark, yeah.
So we might go back into a more... We're going to have savage eras. They're going to, you know, in epochs. But the technology will still continue to go, I believe. If history is anything...
yeah, I mean, I do feel like
things just aren't forgotten easily.
Especially not nowadays.
Yeah, not nowadays.
I mean, and I feel like nowadays we have a better way of, you know, keeping a record. And because people nowadays, I think people forget, even the average person nowadays is really, like, technologically and scientifically savvy in a way that people a couple hundred years ago just weren't.
civilization could collapse, and there's enough machines laying around where people could keep them running for another 50, 60 years until they can figure out how to make them their own.
And a lot of people have the knowledge to know how to run them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like...
Cars, machine guns, generators, electricity, none of that stuff's going anywhere.
Yeah.
That will all be known.
We'll be all right.
Textiles, internet might go somewhere, but computers will probably not go anywhere because there's a lot of old computers sitting around.
And people know how they work.
They know how they work, right. Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's like, you can't take away, even though you might be able to take away for a short time, like the actual technology itself, but you can't take away people's knowledge of how it works.
Right.
And a lot of people know how it works.
If it collapsed, the world would look kind of like Afghanistan. But Afghanistan has all these things. It still has cell phones.
Yeah.
It has everything else.
Do you want to hear something funny?
So it wouldn't take long for it to actually start to pick back up.
Do you want to hear something funny? I don't know why. This just reminded me of that. But when I was... this was many years ago. When I married my ex-husband. And we were talking about going to Wales because we lived over there for a while. I guess it was my stepdad's mother. She's passed away now. She asked if they had electricity in Wales. What? In the United Kingdom. Yeah. In 2001. She asked if they had electricity. Damn. If they had VCRs. Damn. I'm like, where do you think we are talking about? This is a modern... Yeah. And in fact, when I started going to the UK in the 90s, they had ubiquitous cell phone use before the US had it. Yeah. Everybody had a cell phone over there way before we had one. Because I remember going over there in the early 90s, 94, 95, everybody had a fucking cell phone. That was way before people had cell phones over here. Yeah. So they were like ahead of us in that regard. So I thought it was very funny that she was super old. Like, to be fair. But, like, she didn't even think they had electricity or, like, indoor toilets or, like, video I think DVD players or anything. She didn't think they had any of that stuff.
I think the most poorest, most backwards countries on the world right now, they have electrical power.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to be, like, really out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. To not have that stuff.
What do you think? What would be the most primitive country right now, do you think?
I don't know.
Somalia, probably.
But yeah, but even there, you'd have to be like out in the middle of nowhere. You'd have to be out in the middle of nowhere to not have electricity, not have Wi-Fi, not have satellite. It's like, you know what I mean?
Somalia may not have Wi-Fi.
Maybe not. Yeah. But it does seem like you'd kind of have to be. Yeah, you'd kind of have to be out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. But I just thought it was very funny that she thought a first world country like the United Kingdom would not have electricity or like video players or things like that. I thought that was very funny. It just goes to show how people are like, old people are kind of...
That was back in the day.
We're kind of out of it. Well, like I said, this was in the early, early 2000s.
When I moved to Brazil back in the 80s, my grandmother back in down Mississippi was surprised to find out that Brazil was not a backwards country.
Yeah, I feel like...
She thought Brazil was in Africa. I was like, what?
I feel like older people, and like I feel like maybe like I don't think my grandparents had this so much. Yeah. But I do feel like there was a perception among older people, particularly like in the 80s, 90s, maybe early 2000s, maybe up until the early 2000s, that any country other than America like didn't have anything. Yeah. So like I said, that when I came back from the UK and said, oh well, they have like all this shit that we didn't even have. Like they had cell phones before we had them. They had chipped. Like credit cards and ATM cards way before we had them. They had all this other kind of stuff. So like the fact that they could not only like have that stuff but be like several years ahead of us was like that just didn't even register. They didn't understand that at all. They thought everyone else must be just like a backward nothing. Like nobody even like everyone was using outhouses or they were just like shitting in a hole outside. I don't know what they were thinking. What the fuck? It's like,
what year was this?
Like I said, it was like early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
That was like early 2000s.
Okay. That's fucking
maybe
hilarious.
Late 90s. But listen, I thought it was very funny. But it was she was super serious.
Whenever we talk about things going out of date, I always think of like the mid 80s. Remember like back in like 84, 85, any American Italian restaurant you went to in a mall or any kind of strip mall always all had that same cheese and the same fucking pizza, the same calzones. Remember that? The same fucking meatballs. It was like every Italian fast food place was the same place, even though they were all privately owned.
Well, because they all got that shit from Cisco. They all got it from the same, Cisco or U.S. Food Service.
It all tasted the same. Every mall had that damn same restaurant, even though that it was privately owned by an individual guy. And he thought he was the only one, but no, dude, your meatball subs taste just like everybody else's.
Well, yeah,
because they bought that shit from Cisco.
Well, look. Again, my ex-husband used to work for U.S. Food Service, which is the second largest food supplier after Cisco.
Yeah.
So he used to tell me about like all the stuff they had in the warehouse and stuff like that. So pretty much every chain restaurant gets their stuff from one of those two places.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing about ones that are like independently owned, like they might get their stuff from elsewhere. But most of your chain restaurants, Chili's or Red Lobster or whatever, they usually get all their stuff, or most of their stuff, from those two places. And it's almost always frozen or boxed.
And they all had that same...
That's why it always tastes the same.
They all had that same skim milk mozzarella cheese. It was like glue.
That's like most of the stuff that you can buy in the supermarket too.
Cheese over
I mean, you can get the buffalo mozzarella like at Sam's, and you can get it but it's very expensive. It's like what, like $7 for like a little cake. I've
had some European friends. When I was up in Boston, they'd come down. They're from Germany and stuff, and this is back in the 90s, and they'd be mystified by the food that we had. And it was shit like that cheese.
They're like, is this
like,
is
they don't have that cheese in Europe.
It's not real food.
Yeah, and
I get that.
And the beer and shit, they're like, man, well, this is some shitty beer. And it's something that Europeans can't fathom of how big the United States is. And these companies that make this shit are supplying a fucking huge country. And they're trying to keep the prices as low as they can.
Yeah, so they're trying to make it as shitty as possible.
Shitty, so it's kind of like
shitty enough that it's cheap, but not shitty enough that people will complain and not buy it.
So this stuff was coming out of basically like American World War II industrial food factories.
Yeah.
That could make fucking 20 tons of fucking cheese a day. All right, that's where that shit was, because they got to supply all these people. So it would blow their minds. I mean, we have little home breweries and local makers.
Well, like I said, if anything, it's better now. It's better now than it was. Because now, like, people have an appreciation now for like stuff that's, that's made locally or that's made by smaller.
Baby boomers didn't know food, and their parents.
I think they had no taste buds.
And their parents were even worse. They were almost like Soviet level. They were like Soviet level palates. A boiled potato was good to them. A fucking piece of fucking cabbage was good to them. You know what I mean? They would eat anything. Fucking.
It was the shit that they were
eating. They would go to what they would call a smorgasbord.
Oh yeah.
And it was just the most blandest, whitest food, just white people food on steroids. It was just like nothing had salt on it. That was some shitty food,
they would even put salt on stuff.
Not even salt on it, and they'd eat the shit out of that stuff, and it was like
it didn't taste like anything.
It was all something came out of factory. Yeah.
I like. You know what? We should do a whole episode.
Show them a plate of spaghetti, and they go, "Oh, that's foreign food."
Yeah. And I remember that too. And like I said, if you guys are younger, you might not remember. But like, we grew up in the 70s.
Yeah.
So it's like I remember when spaghetti and meatballs was like that was foreign food.
Fucking foreign food.
That was foreign food.
That was as weird as Chinese food to them.
Yeah, and like the only Chinese food you could get back in the day was that Le Choy
the can fucking chow mein.
Yeah, the canned chow mein.
Yeah.
You'd have that, and it was like some exotic shit, man. It's like, would have water chest. What the fuck are these?
What is a water chest? Then?
Yeah, it was like
a bean sprout. Oh, shit.
Yeah, it was like a super weird, and like if you eat it now, it's not terrible. You can eat it now.
Bland.
It's really bland. It doesn't really taste like real Chinese food, or it's like I said, it's not horrible. I could still eat it if I had to, but it doesn't taste like actual Chinese food.
But that was back in the 90s. I was getting embarrassed, I'd have these fucking German girls that were fucking in Boston. I'm hanging out with them, and they're like, they thought the food was atrocious, and I was trying to explain to them that this is industrial, mass-produced food. We had microbreweries that made fucking good beer. We had, small
we had
companies,
that back, but nowadays it's a lot more.
And it wasn't at a national level.
Yeah.
Now you can have national level big food factories to where, man, it's hard to tell that that didn't come out of a fucking food factory.
Like, that's another way in which shit is a lot better nowadays.
Man, that shit.
And I'm going to give credit to, like, hipsters for this one because, one, they love beer. Two, they love all kind of, like, different foods. So
yeah,
I feel like the acceptance of all this different kind of beers, different kind of food and stuff like that, I think that's really, like, come into the fore in this. And I think people, like, have a lot of more appreciation now for...
Yeah, the American food is a lot better than it used to be.
Well, you can get, I mean...
You can get everything.
Well, yeah, depending on where you live. I mean, obviously, if you live in, like...
fantastic Indian restaurants.
Ass-fuck Wisconsin or something, you can't get anything. But I feel like it's a lot better nowadays. Like, we live in Orlando.
Greek food, Arabic food.
I mean, we can get pretty much anything we want. You know, whenever we want it. It's like there's tons of restaurants around here. Even if you have to drive, like, 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. 20
and
minutes.
They got rid of all the old chain. Now they have, like, new chains, like Red Robin and places like that, weird stuff we didn't even recognize. We were driving around. Well, what is that, Jenny? New chain,
Well, weird and there's some chains, too, that have been, like, around. Because I think Red Robin's been around forever, but we just got it here, like, not that long ago.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, for a burger, that's, like...
It's not like the old chains we grew up with.
No.
With plastic food.
Well, like I said...
We're going way off the way.
That's all right. It's the 150th episode. Like I said, people love the fucking... We're not even talking about the flat earth anymore.
I'm fucking drunk and I'm not talking about the flat earth.
Well, like I said, I feel like... You know what? Maybe we should... Maybe this probably won't get that many views, but I feel like we should do a whole show on, like, food history. Because I am fascinated by that kind of shit. Yeah. Like, one of the main things... And this is, like, no joke. One of the main things that I read about is that... I read about, like, mid-century type recipes and, like, why people cooked that type of way. Yeah. Like, I'm really interested in, like... I'm really interested in that kind of stuff. Like, why, like, particular food trends, like, took hold at certain times and stuff. There's something about food that ties into, like, culture in a way that, like, I find really fascinating. Yeah. So...
Some of that weird 60s food, man. Fuck.
I told you I bought the book. It's like it's right over there. Show it. Like, get that one that's right under Dr. Sleep. Pull that out. Pull that out. There's like a little book that's right under that Stephen King one that's like I bought this the other day just because this is called, and I probably showed this before, The Amazing Mackerel Pudding Plan. These were like recipe cards from the 70s, and these are magical.
You don't want to eat any of that.
Yeah, these are from Weight Watchers. If any of you have gone to like any of the blogs, because there's a couple of them, and I can't remember what the one is called. It's like Gallery of Unfortunate Food or Regrettable Food. That's what it is. But they have like the Weight Watchers cards from the 70s. There was like a whole pack of them. I think my mom had them, and the photos of the food were just like,
damn, look at this shit.
Yeah, they're horrifying, and it's like, why would anyone eat this? Even if it was supposed to be.
Meat, what's it say? Meat loaves with horseradish. Would you eat that shit? I would never eat that shit.
Delicious. Yeah, but I'm fascinated by that kind of stuff. It's fascinating to me. Just
Frankfurter pie.
Yeah, I think my grandmother made that a couple of times. From an anthropological viewpoint, I am fascinated by this kind of stuff.
Overnight stew, and I'm looking at this shit. I'm like, that's American food. Mm-hmm. Fuck.
There's a couple that are like quote unquote ethnic food that are delightful.
Stuffed cabbage looks normal.
Some of them look normal, but not many.
Ah, man. Yeah. 60s and 70s food.
Yeah, those are like Weight Watchers diet cards from the 70s. Nasty. It is fucking priceless. But I'm like fascinated by that kind of stuff. I don't know how we got on this from like talking about flat Earth, but whatever. Should we get back to talking about that?
Yeah, Earth is not really flat, but some people like to argue that it's flat. Because it's
Here's
harder
the thing.
to prove.
I was like, look, if the Earth was flat, you would think that if you had like a super good telescope, that you could go out with your telescope in the backyard, you could look through the telescope, and I could see fucking Africa from here.
If you looked in the right direction.
You would think.
Yeah, if you looked in the right direction, you would. What else is cool? How long has this been going on for Flat Earth?
An hour.
An hour. It's time to actually go to the day.
Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
But I can't see Africa through a telescope.
No.
Which is why I think that... Well, I mean, the whole reason that the ancient Greeks... the first reason that they thought about this, why they thought the Earth was spherical, was because they noticed that ships going over the horizon, they're like, why do they disappear like it looks like they're going off the side of a ball? So they noticed. And they were like, oh, I wonder if that means the Earth is a ball. And then they figured out that
there's a bunch of mathematical shit that helped them compute that, too. Geometry computed it.
And the whole thing about like lunar eclipses, because that's the Earth's shadow going
They were already predicting the diameter of the circumference of the Earth and the Sun.
Yeah, like I said.
And then the distance between the two. They had that all figured out. The dude
that did the diameter of the Earth, that was, I don't even remember that. That might have been 240 BC, and he wasn't that far off.
Right.
So...
I think he was just limited by the tools that he had.
Yeah, exactly.
He was using things like shadows and looking down.
Exactly, and that was the same kind of thing as, like I said, in Columbus's day. Like
people are smarter than you think they are.
Exactly, and people back then... They didn't have all these other distractions. They didn't have, like, fucking Netflix or, like, cell phones or anything like that. So they were just, like, observing things.
There was a whole subculture of old dudes in these white tunics, man, that fucking sat around and thought about shit. They were called, like, wise men, philosophers and scientists, and that's what they did. They got famous.
Yeah.
Sitting around talking shit, trying to figure shit out, and then arguing over it. It's all that Hellenistic, all that Greek stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have to, like, give props to the ancient Greeks. They figured out a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
That
they couldn't figure out to stay away from them boys, though. That's the part I don't understand.
Yeah, but, everyone's got to have a flaw.
That's part of their culture.
They figured out a bunch of other stuff.
I think I'd have figured that out real quick. You know what I mean? But they didn't like women. They liked these boys. I couldn't understand.
Well, I guess they liked women too because they didn't die out. So obviously they liked.
I heard
women
they just kept the women kind of like cattle. They were like breeding pods. Really, what they were all about.
What else is
these
new?
Young boys. Really.
What else is new?
The wife was just a maid. Really.
What else is new?
That's not what they're talking about. Most women are working today. They work. They're not maids.
Yeah. Well, maid is working too.
Look at us.
Nowadays,
I do most of the cooking and almost all the cleaning.
You don't do all the cleaning? What are you talking about?
I vacuum up all the floors and fucking...
And you mop the kitchen and that's it.
Mop the kitchen and
I do the laundry. I clean the bathrooms.
I do that too. I do that too.
One time, this is funny. One time I asked him, I was like, oh, I need to clean the bathrooms because I think someone was coming over or something. Yeah. I only clean when someone's coming over. So, pretty much. But yeah, so I was like, I have to clean. And we have like a big, it's like one of those big baths. It has like a tub and a shower and like 2 sinks and like the little separate whatever. So he said that he cleaned the bathroom.
Yeah. And
I went in there and I'm like, this doesn't look like it was cleaned. It turned out that all he did was clean the toilet that was in the little bitty closet. He didn't clean
that's
the sinks. He didn't clean the shower or the tub.
I didn't claim that, though.
Or the counter.
I didn't claim that, though. I
thought you meant... because when I say clean the bathroom, I mean clean the whole
bathroom
area.
Yeah.
I don't mean just clean the toilet. If I said I was going to clean the toilet, I would just say I'm going to clean the toilet.
That's your mistake. You misunderstood what I was saying.
Bathroom means the whole bathroom.
Okay. All right.
Toilet means just the toilet.
Okay.
So
we got it done, though. We got it done.
Eventually.
We got it done.
But yeah, so... Okay. But yeah. I'm the one that works, though. That's why I'm sick, because I'm just, like, working and working.
I ain't gonna say anything.
He's not gonna comment. Alright, we didn't even talk that much about Flat Earth, but whatever. Flat Earth is fucking stupid, and if you believe it, you're fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
Yeah. Yeah, you can.
I can say that?
Yeah. It's not flat. It's round.
Obviously.
It's a sphere.
It's like, seriously, how deluded do you have to be? Apollo moon landing is bad. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, if you believe the Earth is flat, I'm not even mad. I'm not even mad at you if you believe the Earth is flat, because I think that you clearly have some mental deficiency.
The Earth is fucking spherical. Okay.
Well, like I said, it's kind of more, as Neil deGrasse Tyson would say, it's actually kind of more pear-shaped.
Okay.
Slightly pear-shaped.
Flat Earth reality is only, like, for certain people, and it's an exercise. It's a philosophical exercise. It's not it's not the kind of reality. It's a metaphysical reality.
Right. Well,
it's a philosophical reality.
That's kind of how I try to look at this.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of ways, I'm a very rational person. Like I said, and I don't know if you saw the show where I said that I'm Spock and he's Kirk. But that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So I'm very Spock-like. So people that are, like, have these weird, like, irrational kind of viewpoints, it's like, it kind of makes me angry, but it's like, I know there's nothing I can do about it, so I just kind of try to get over it. But this, I don't know. There's a lot of people that that defend ideas that they know are wrong. Yeah,
okay?
like I can see.
It's what they call back in the day a pissing match.
Yeah.
They're in a pissing match with you. They know that it's wrong, but they're just trying to defeat you.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Well,
so
now,
I don't take it seriously.
I try to think to myself, it's like, in a way, it's good to think about these types of things or try to refute these types of things because it can make you kind of like, maybe even like look into your own biases and like maybe just like, how do I know the earth is round? And like maybe you'll learn something that way. So I try to look at it in a positive way, even though it still kind of makes me mad. But, you know.
Certain arguments are not about what's right and wrong. Some arguments are just about fuck you. That's what it's about fuck you.
I know that.
That's what they're doing.
But the thing about those kind of arguments...
They don't want to give up on their belief.
The thing about those kind of arguments is I don't really have time for those types of arguments.
It's all a game, Jamie.
Like, if you genuinely believe that... And here's something that's kind of interesting, too, that I wanted to get into a little bit, because I was reading this, like I said, this Newsweek article that I mentioned before that was written by Lee McIntyre, where he went to a Flat Earth Society convention, and he was like, the thing that I noticed is that all the evidence that they gave and stuff like that, he's like, so I realized pretty early on in the convention that any evidence that I showed them, he's like, despite their assertions that they wanted to hear the evidence that the earth was round, he's like, I knew that anything I presented to them would just be dismissed or said it was fake or whatever, because flat earth people genuinely have said that every single photograph that's been taken from space, like from the International Space Station, from the shuttle, whatever, is fake.
It's been faked, yeah.
Which, okay. But so they think every single one is fake. So he's like, so I knew that it would not be productive to approach them from that, because he's like, any evidence that I presented would simply be, he's like, so what I wanted to do was I wanted to get to them from a reasoning standpoint. He's like, so the first thing I asked them was, what evidence would convince you that you were wrong?
Well, they're going to say none.
That's what I mean. He's like, so that seems to be the most productive thing to ask, because if they say none, then there is no point in talking to them anymore, because nothing that you say is going to convince them that they are wrong, so why bother talking to them?
This is why the study of flat earth realism is important. Okay? Because this same effect transcends flat earth realism and goes into other disciplines.
Well, that's what I mean. You're getting into a scientific, like the whole philosophical thing. That's why this interested me.
This thinking goes into politics,
exactly,
academia,
exactly.
It goes everywhere. So if you can understand or accept flat earth realism, or the flat earth reality, okay?
If you want to put it that.
That's how I'm going to put it. Okay, if you can understand that, then you can see how it's this same distortion, or let's say, okay, this same acceptance of flat earth reality is happening in other disciplines.
Yeah, I realize that.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of, that was the same argument that he was making in Newsweek.
Some people are doing this satirically.
Yeah.
To show that this is happening everywhere.
Well, yeah, but that wasn't the point he was making. The point he was making is that if you want to make any ground with these people, you have to first determine if there's any point in trying to make ground with them, because it's like, is there any evidence that you could show that, despite the fact that they say that they want to see evidence of this, that, and the other, is there any evidence you could show them that will change their mind? If there is not, then is there any point in engaging them any further? Right. Or simply like abandoning them to their delusions, which is essentially what it is.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Because what's happening with flat earth realists, okay, is that it is the same phenomena that's happening in the realm of politics and other parts of science and social science and just everything. News. People lie. People lie. People like to lie, and people like to win. And this is happening everywhere, you know. They just do. Well, not saying that everybody's a liar. I'm just saying that in every subject, there's somebody in there that likes to lie.
Well, the thing about it is that sometimes, and I'm not saying that it's always intentional, but humans in general are just, they're hardwired to be a particular way. And a lot of people like to believe in things that there is no evidence for, or that they only have subjective evidence for example. That's very popular. People have confirmation bias. Most people have that. So it's difficult to overcome biases that are like inherent to the human brain.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So, and not many people really do that. Not many people really like kind of look at themselves and be like, you know, why have I come to believe what I believe? You know, is there some kind of way that I could have been mistaken about that? Or, you know, it's hard to look at yourself in that way, like that objectively. It's not a very natural
Some people
thing to do.
Just like to believe things.
Exactly.
Even if it's not true, they still like to believe them. Even
well, because it's comforting or whatever.
Right, I think that's the main thing. Actually.
I do think that a lot of people come to their beliefs. Well, I'm not going to say that because it sounds condescending, but I do think a lot of people come to their beliefs not just because they haven't examined them. You know what I mean? Most people don't think of them from an objective standpoint, or from like a standpoint of kind of coming away from themselves and like looking at themselves in an objective fashion.
I think life is mostly about having fun. And I think, I think a lot of people adopt these beliefs because they are fun to them and they support the fun that they want.
Yeah, maybe not fun in the sense that we would understand fun, but fun for them.
It's fun for them.
Sure.
And that this supports their feelings of well-being, and it supports their viewpoint in the world.
Yeah.
So that's
confirmation bias.
So this is what they've chosen to believe. That's the way to put it.
Well, like I said, I think a lot of people.
It's not just religious people. You know.
No, it's everything.
It's like everything. Everybody's like that.
It's everything.
So
well, like I said, it's very natural. It's very natural.
Yeah, it's natural. I'm lighthearted about it.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of the stuff that I believe is true, but only to a certain point. Yeah. Only up to a certain point. There's always things that can go outside of what I believe. You know what I mean? Like, unexpected shit happens. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, well, that did happen. Okay, cool. And I just keep on moving.
Yeah.
I'm not real rigid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't have certain expectations.
Right.
You know? The problem is when you get the fundamentalists that have a bunch of expectations.
Yeah.
And those fundamentalists are in all disciplines. They're even outside of religion, actually. There are political fundamentalists. I wouldn't even call that.
That's more dogmatism.
Dogmatic. That's a good way of putting it. But yeah, dogmatic people. You can't be dogmatic.
Well, like I said, it's anything that, any belief, it doesn't have to be religious, it could be anything, any belief that you come to for maybe not completely reasonable reasons, and then later you just look for evidence that supports, but you don't ever look for any evidence that falsifies it. Right. And I think that's a problem. Like I said, it's a problem, but it's not a problem in the sense that, because it's a very natural, that's the way our brains work.
Humans aren't pragmatic.
It's something that has to be overcome, and that's hard, and I understand that a lot of people don't want to do that.
Humans are not pragmatic, and I learned this when I got out of the Army and became a salesman. Okay. Emotion sells. Mm-hmm. And emotion sells, and really when you look at money and the billions of dollars that's happening in the stock market, like in Wall Street and everything, really what's behind it is emotion.
Oh, yeah.
People are buying and selling things based upon how they feel.
Yep.
All right. And really, once you understand that, you really got a lot of the world licked.
Yeah.
Like
I said, that's not how reality works, but that's how human perception of reality works.
Yeah. Yep. If you can understand that people are basically more motivated by emotion more than anything else.
Yep.
And you can manipulate those emotions, then you can get outcomes that you want. And there's a lot of people that are making a fucking shit ton of money off that.
Yep.
politicians and leaders, and that's what they do.
Yep.
They understand people's emotions. And I don't think there's anything bad about it. It's just,
there's not.
It's just part of the human. It's just part of the human experience.
Like I said, I'm not like making a judgment call about it because I know that that's how human brains work. That's how they evolved to work.
Yeah.
It's just that we evolved in a particular way that doesn't necessarily reflect the way how reality is.
Yeah.
But like I said, that's
That's
a failure of our brain, not a failure of reality.
I'm gonna prove it in 2 words. Mercedes-Benz. Okay. Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah.
People buy Mercedes-Benz because of emotion. Okay.
People buy pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Well, other than like
Mercedes-Benz making a lot of money based on
because you need that.
Jenny and I, we got a Ford that we've run into the ground. Fucking got 140,000.
Because I don't care about cars, and I will just buy something that's cheap that gets me from place to place.
And we've spent very little money on this fucking car when you really get down to it. A Mercedes of that same year couldn't have done that. All right, Mercedes actually, they have expensive repair bills here. The reality, the reliability and the customer satisfaction of Mercedes is really not that high.
Nope.
The customer satisfaction, the highest customer satisfaction, if you were to actually look at the data, is that little Korean car. What's it called? That little Korean.
A Kia?
No, Hyundai.
Oh, a Hyundai.
Hyundai has the highest customer satisfaction.
I know.
One of the cheaper cars.
I know.
But
that's why I always bought little
Mercedes-Benz sell like fucking crazy, and it's very fucking profitable.
I would never buy one
because it's emotion.
For that exact
people
reason.
Want to be seen in a certain way, and they buy that thing. It's a status symbol. And,
right, but another thing that I understand, because, like I said, I'm kind of Spock-like, so I don't get this whole thing, is that other people do not care what car you drive.
Yeah, they don't really.
They do not notice.
But it's your emotions that make you buy that car.
My emotions make me
okay.
Look at, like, what is the cheapest car that is the most dependable.
But we're talking about the person
I don't care what it looks like.
We're talking about the person that bought the Mercedes.
Oh, I know.
Their emotions that
I'm just saying that's what differentiates.
If I look at a Mercedes and go, well, if I should buy a Mercedes-Benz and what would beat this out, really, I'd probably get a Cadillac. I think probably a Cadillac mechanically would beat out a Mercedes-Benz, but I'm just saying, I'd rather have a Cadillac.
Like I said, my whole thing,
new Cadillac,
my whole thing is what is the best quality that I can get for the cheapest price. That is the only metric that I use to judge that kind of thing. I do not care what other people will think about my vehicle choice. I do not care about any of that stuff because I don't care about other people's stupid
You can
opinions.
drive an old man's Cadillac into the ground.
I learned to drive in several old man Cadillacs because my grandfather had several of those parked in his backyard along with several boats. He was a hoarder.
They just don't break, really.
Well, there wasn't much in them to break.
Not much in them, and they just, an old man's luxury car.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I grew up in that shit. I know.
Yeah.
My grandfather had, I believe, 3 Cadillacs. One was beige, one was chocolate colored. I don't remember what the other color was, but he had several of them parked in the back.
We're getting kind of drunk. Have we talked enough about flat Earth?
Probably. We didn't talk much about it, but whatever. We got to talk a little bit.
What can we talk about? There's not much to talk about with flat Earth, really.
Yeah, the Earth is not flat.
The Earth's not flat.
Like I said.
Yeah.
Okay, don't take this the wrong way, but if you believe the Earth is flat, I'm thinking that nobody that listens to this show probably believes the Earth. No. But if you do believe the Earth is flat, you are fucking retarded.
Yeah, go ahead and unsubscribe.
And I don't mean that in a bad way, but
go ahead and unsubscribe.
No, actually, I don't even want to say that because that's like an insult to retarded people.
Go ahead and unsubscribe.
That's how I feel about it.
It's not
like you're below creationists. In my estimation, and that's pretty low because I really do not like creationists.
I've met some creationists though, but then when I talk to them, you find out that that they don't really believe too firmly in creationism.
Well, I don't even know if it's believing firmly, but it's
they were told that they were.
They've never been.
They never really
questioned about it or thought about it.
They never really thought about it.
That's the thing. Like if you start if you know something about the topic, because I've found this as well. Because I actually know how evolution works. I've read a lot of books on the subject. So if you start asking them about specific aspects of evolution, well, what do you think about this and
that? They get mad when you mention
they just get mad or they don't know what you're talking about.
No.
So I feel like a lot of their shit just comes from like just being ignorant of how stuff works, or just being told that and just buying it.
They don't know about DNA, how DNA works, and epigenetics and selective breeding, and fucking how, you know what I mean? Well, as soon as you start really getting involved in the shit like animal breeding, or you're dealing with animals like in the horse business, and probably, you know, imagine probably the same thing would happen if you're dealing with fucking sports medicine, okay? Genes matter, okay? Huh. And sports select winners, okay, based upon their genes and their abilities, you know. Not just sports, but nature. Nature is kind of like a sport, too. If you keep eliminating motherfuckers from the game, or nature, based upon a certain criteria, certain genes will disappear and other genes will be reinforced.
Yeah.
That's just all it is. Selective breeding. That's what we're talking about. It's kind of funny because the same people that don't believe in evolution... might believe in selective breeding. Because you had religious people that were doing it. Because it's almost kind of like... It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's like almost like a smaller scale, larger scale, but it's like they'll believe in shit on the smaller scale, but not the larger scale. They don't like understand that, like, you know, smaller changes over time will, you know, incrementally will add up to like a larger change.
Yeah.
I don't get why they don't get that, but whatever.
Yeah, and I've heard some of these fucking college kids fucking make weird arguments based upon you are how you feel kind of fucking ideas. No, you're not. You're not how you feel. You are what you are based upon your attributes.
Well, not necessarily, because like I said, and I think I've mentioned this maybe on some of our serial killer shows, environment does play a very, very large factor. And it might be 50-50, and I'm only saying that as like kind of a pop psychology type of thing, but because nobody knows the exact percentage. But your genetics and the environment interact in particular ways, and they mirror back upon one another. So the two can't really be separated.
But your feelings don't make you 6'3".
Well, no.
That's the deal. And in nature, there might be a situation where nature would care if you were 6'3".
Yeah.
It doesn't care about your feelings.
There are some things that can be influenced by your environment, and some things that can't.
Yeah.
Your height is one of the things that are genetically programmed, and that there's nothing.
Your speed, your strength.
Well, and I'm not saying there's nothing you can do about that, because somebody that was born genetically predisposed to a certain way, maybe if they grew up, like let's say they were twins and they were separated, and one of them grew up in like a really you know, affluent kind of family that had good nutrition, good medical care, stuff like that, they might end up taller than somebody that ended up somewhere that had bad nutrition, bad environment, and stuff like that. It's not going to be a huge difference, but it will be a difference. So environment does play a factor.
How old school dog breeders used to do it is they'd have 4 litters of dogs, okay, that they could breed these 4 litters together. Each one of these litters might have had 10 dogs in it. They choose the best dog from each one of these fucking 4 litters, and they kill all the rest of them, and then they just breed those 4 dogs together. And they keep doing that over and over again to eventually get the dogs that they want. That's fucking cruel. I could never be a dog breeder, but that's how they used to do. They would kill all those baby dogs.
Well, and the ones that they come up with.
Yeah, but you know what, though? That's what nature does. Nature kills all those dogs, but they just don't do it in infancy. They do it in adulthood as those dogs are failing to pass certain tests.
About nature is that even if you have other attributes, like say you're not as awesome as like the alpha dog, but you're maybe a little bit less, but you can still like breed a little bit.
Yeah, then nature
then your shit will still be passed on. So it's like there's more.
It's more. It's not this cut and dry.
Room for variation. Yeah. There's more room for variation.
Dog breeders are only selecting based upon the way they look.
On what they want.
What they want and what they look. Yeah.
And a lot of times what they want is detrimental to the species as a whole, because look what they did to like the pug and things like that, where it's like now his nose is so upturned he can't like really breathe anymore.
Nature is doing that same thing. It's just that it may be
in a less stringent fashion.
Well, what it is doing is instead of only 1 dog surviving, 4 dogs survive. And those 4 dogs survive for different reasons.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different.
That's what I mean.
Eventually
there's a wider
But eventually, spectrum. Over millions of years, you have new dogs developed from that. Eventually. And that's just what we're talking about.
But as I said, the thing about dog breeders and pigeon breeders or whatever you want to do is like sometimes you're dealing with like fucked up like human conceptions of like what they want a dog to look like. Like, hey, I want a cat with like super short legs. Wouldn't that be cute? And then they want to breed that.
Right.
But that is detrimental to the species.
It
like,
is, yeah.
If that was in nature,
those cats would die.
That would die out. Right. So I feel like that's not. It's not a completely good analog. Because you're using...
no, it's a good analog for the mechanism.
It's a good analog for the mechanism. But it's not a good analog for...
nature doesn't do it that way.
How things
nature does it in a better way, actually.
Because in a lot of ways... I mean, there are a lot of different ways to survive and thrive in particular environments.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be one way. It could be like one way is the best way, but then there's like the second best way, the third best way, you know.
In chimps, the biggest, strongest males aren't the only ones passing their genome.
Exactly.
Down. Also, the cute guys are sneaking it.
Right.
They found it.
That's what I mean. It's like, they're not the strongest.
Right, the big strong guys are protecting these females, but these little cute motherfuckers are sneaking fucking semen in them fucking women.
Right, and like you see...
And they're like going, keep that shit quiet, and the girl's like going, yeah, it's all right.
I got you.
They got that shit on film.
Yeah. Well, it's like they even have the same thing with
Prince
like...
came from.
They even have the same thing in like... Even like cephalopods, like octopus and stuff like that. Like, you have the big, strongest male, and like supposedly he, sires all the next generation. But you also have the quote unquote beta males that pretend to be females to get close to the females, and the females are like, oh,
you see a lot of that.
You're
nowadays.
cute too.
You see a lot of that nowadays. You see a lot.
I'm just saying, and that works too.
Yeah. This is the Tom and Jenny Drunk Show. I tell you what, we finished on this subject. We need to take a break. We'll come back on the next one.
Yeah, we'll take a break, and then we're going to come back. I want to talk a little bit about the Black Knight satellite, because I just wrote a big article about this.
I don't know much about this one, so we'll see.
And this is kind of an interesting topic.
Okay.
Even though, spoiler alert, I don't think it's an alien satellite. Okay. But, we'll get into that.
All right.
But we'll talk about that after the break.